Were you aware that there's such a thing as football boots just for women? You might be from the school of thought that a boot is a boot, and if you are, that's completely understandable too, given that's been the way until quite recently. Boots for women have traditionally just been men's boots shrunk down. Boots have largely been designed around the male form, just as many things have when it comes to sport. Up until now, design when it comes to sport illustrated that the default is to fit everything to men, and let iterations take hold from there, so failing to acknowledge the intricacies and unique aspects of women beyond just casting them as small men. Ill-fitting shoes, for example, can cause physical strain and injuries for athletes, and there's also the very real potential of long-term consequences. A recent study is revealing in this regard. For instance, while 78% of female rugby players list comfort as a top priority when selecting footwear, 89% experience pain or discomfort from their boots. It's an area IDA Sports co-founder Laura Youngston hoped to address when she set up her business in 2018, having identified the need for bespoke women's football boots that accommodate for the nuances of a woman's foot.
I spotted the gap in the market with the performance football boots for women. There just wasn't anything like that. I was fed up of wearing kid shoes because the sizes didn't go down to my size, and then I realised that there was really an opportunity for other women to have this experience. And since then we've grown and really lent into what the shoes can do for you and how they can aid your performance as opposed to taking away from it.
Dr. Michelle Hone and Dr. Sarah Kelly, the co-founders of an Irish female health supplement range called Horology, can certainly speak to that thought process as well, hoping to address the unique needs of women through their products. Dr. Hone says their products have been specifically designed for the unique needs of women at every stage of life. The idea for their company came about, says Dr. Kelly, through growing tired of women's problems being presented as something that they just had to suck up and endure rather than being properly addressed and confronted.
I think what's really important to point out is that women are so different to men. We have such a unique physiology. We're almost like different species. And as we know, women have been neglected in the research for so long. We've done a lot of research on men, and we've just taken what we've learned from that research and just applied it to women and assumed that they'll elicit the same response, when that's not the case. So it's really important that we see women as very, very different, especially in terms of our physiology in comparison to men. And as a result, we can't really prescribe one-size-fits-all approaches that also fit in with a man's lifestyle, with a man's life. So it's really important that we brought products to the market that were specifically bespoke and specifically designed for the unique needs of the female physiology.
With both women coming from a scientific background, they're all too aware of the gender data gap. It's an area Dr. Robin Healy, Assistant Lecturer in Sports Science in the Department of Sport and Health Sciences in TUS, alongside his She Research Centre colleagues, hopes to tackle. Some of the studies he has been involved in have looked at the use of GPS units amongst LGFA players and their teams, as well as their use of strength and conditioning programmes.
So some of the findings coming out of the research in ladies getting football is multifaceted, but some of it is the lack of access. So things like GPS, we tend to see, based on surveys we've conducted and our colleagues in other institutions, that about 90+% of male intercounty teams make use of GPS, whereas in the female space it's around 30 to 60%. So we do see that access gap. Now, that's partly due to just a lack of resources or a lack of equipment or a lack of time.
In other instances though, it is about creating adaptions or custom-tailored base points when it comes to women's sport.
A lot of devices and a lot of techniques and monitoring systems, it was initially developed for men, so validated in men, we know it works. And then some of the standards or thresholds were then incorporated into female athletes or for female athletes. Sometimes that's fine, and there's no reason not to, and then sometimes that's a bit of an issue. To give a recent example, a study just published last year used male thresholds for what is considered high intensity sprinting and what is considered maximal effort sprinting. And when you use that male threshold, it would say that in Premiership players, in the English Premiership for semi-professional rugby players, about 2% of all of their running was considered high intensity. Now, what we see in the male game is about 8 to 9%. Now, when you use custom thresholds just based around what women actually do in terms of how fast they can sprint and how active they are, we see that the threshold or the percentage actually changes. It's about 8%, just exactly what you'd expect at the highest level of sport. So using defaults that are built for men in the female game, in some areas it can actually underestimate. It can point you down the wrong avenue. If you're monitoring load, then you'll overestimate or you'll underestimate. If you're monitoring performance, then you'll underestimate as well. So having data that's based on female athletes and what they actually do will actually continue to serve and improve our use of these technologies for female athletes.
Things like Ida and Youngston's boots then are a prime example, with their design featuring a more triangular shape akin to the form of a generic woman's foot, while also offering increased arch support and custom stud configuration in line with the differences in weight distribution throughout a woman's body. That's not to say that all women will find them better, but even just having the freedom to choose allows more autonomy over footwear decisions.
It's about finding the right gear for the right moment. You've got unisex jerseys, and then you've got women's cut jerseys, and people have different preferences. I think when it comes to equipment that you use to aid performance, then you really got to find something that works for your body. And I think once you get something that really works, there's really no looking back, because you're like, oh, I totally see how it didn't work for me in the past.
With all of that said, Dr. Robin Healy says there is still a bit to go in relation to research around women in sport and products designed to fit their specific needs. He notes that opportunity and resources can be key as well when it comes to women's sport.
Sometimes we can overemphasize the physical differences and we can kind of use them as a bit of a scapegoat. So we might just say, women are built differently, that's why they get injured. And sometimes that's a cop-out, and sometimes we should just focus on the things we know that work for athletes, period.
When it comes to monitoring or tracking performance across an entire team, continued research will only further serve female athletes when there are more studies to draw on and therefore more comparisons to be made. This will not only be in terms of the information that will be made available to female athletes and their coaches, but also the companies that look to serve them in the future on their own merit. Data, access and made-to-measure design, all adhering to the unique needs of women, all linking up to create a more level playing field. This video is part of the Same But Different series, looking at what sets women's sport apart. For more, you can follow the series on the Irish Independent.